Right. Um, Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for attending this evening. Um, this is really a great turnout, and I really appreciate all of you being here tonight. My name is Chris Orbaugh. I am one of the organizers of the event this evening. We've promoted this event across quite a few different meetup groups, and we've got attendees joining from several countries and time zones tonight. Um, what brings us all together is a group called PMX. It's a collection of meetups. And what we believe at PMX is that extraordinary products are created by engaged and informed team members. Our mission is to inspire and build a new generation of leaders in the tech community by providing opportunities for personal growth through education and networking. I think we're in for a real treat tonight. Tonight, we've all come to hear Jared speak. I've been lucky enough to see Jared in person on a few occasions. I first saw Jared speak in an event in a park almost 10 years ago in 2012, and then again in 2014. At that point in my career, I was really in the middle of transitioning from web designer to software designer. And I was just learning about UX and UI, Scrum, and Agile. And I still remember some of the stories Jared told 10 years ago. The things I heard him talk about then, I feel like are still incredibly relevant today. I learned design is the rendering of intent, that delightful content can add real value, that UX strategists create delight by working in the intersection of business and design. And he also told a very inspirational story about a long piece of string. But in the last 10 years, technology has changed. But at the end of the day, we're still all working to serve the needs of our users, customers, and companies. That's why I'm really excited about tonight's talk, what goes into a proactive UX strategy. I'm ready to learn something new that I can carry with me for the next 10 years. And what I'm going to ask is that while Jared is presenting, we're going to keep our microphones off and hold all questions to the end. If you think of something you'd like to ask Jared during the presentation, please put it into the chat, and we're going to follow up with all questions at the end of the presentation. And I'm going to try to open up the microphones and video cameras at that point so we can all connect a little more personally. But without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic and camera over to Jared. Thank you so much.
Hey there, everybody. Thank you for coming out this evening. I am really excited to be talking to you here and talking about what goes into a proactive UX strategy. And so, yeah, let's get started on that. And when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, I kept coming back to an image, and the image was from my childhood watching the I Love Lucy show, and there's this episode of the I Love Lucy show with Lucille Ball, where Lucy and Ethel, her best friend, get a job at a chocolate factory, and they're at this chocolate factory, and they have this job, which is it's a simple job, but they're told that if they screw it up, they're going to get fired. And so the simple job is this: there's a conveyor belt in front of them, and there's chocolates that are coming down the conveyor belt, and they are their job is to take the chocolate off the conveyor belt, wrap it in a piece of paper, I guess, and put it back on the conveyor belt and send it down into another hole on the other side of the conveyor belt. And they're told that if any chocolates get through that hole that don't have wrappings on it, that's the end for them. And at first, this just works fine. They're like, we can handle this. They take chocolate, wrap it in paper, put it back on, take the next one, wrap paper, put it back on. But over time, what starts to happen is the belt starts to speed up, and the amount of chocolate on the belt starts to get more intense, and they're doing their best to keep up, but they start to fall behind. So they have to do something with the chocolate that's not getting wrapped. So they don't have any real place to put it. So they start putting it in their pockets, and they take off their chef's hat and they start putting it in their chef's hat, and they start eating some of it because I just run out of places to put it, and it's hilarity ensues. But the reason I'm telling you about this episode is that this is how a lot of UX practice gets done today. We have these projects that we start, and it is not unlike the Lucio Ball Chocolate Factory. This idea that there's basically two walls with a hole in them, and there's a conveyor belt that runs through these things, and on the conveyor belt are little pieces of chocolate. And at first the chocolate's fine, but it just keeps getting more and more intense. And this is the work of UX people. Frankly, it's dealing with this moving conveyor belt of projects. Except we call a segment of this thing a sprint, and we have to somehow do all of the UX work in this tiny window. And if we leave any out, we get stuck. And that's the world that we're in. And we can see it as a project that starts, and at first this is the moment at the beginning where we start to find out what the project is, and then somewhere in here we do some maybe some stakeholder interviews if we can do that, and then that helps us figure out what to wireframe, and maybe we build something really quick, and we do some usability testing in here, and then we say, okay, that's good enough, and we do some other part of design, and suddenly we're like, okay, well, let's do some more usability testing just to make sure it's okay. And then the project ends, and we might find something else here, but there's no time to fix it. And then we repeat, right? The next chocolate comes down the conveyor belt. And this process just seems to get faster and shorter, and there's more work, and we're discovering more things, and we don't seem to be able to ever finish anything. And it feels like we're in some sort of feature factory. And that problem is what we call reactive UX. And reactive UX is how a lot of teams operate. It's this constant process where we are just always reacting to whatever happens in this moment. We don't know what's going to happen in that moment. It's like this magical moment where some product manager reaches into this giant bag labeled the backlog, and they pull out this magic piece of paper, and then that's what we're going to do for the next 2 weeks. And we don't really know this, and the work that we do is always constrained. It's always pushed into this tiny little window, and that window just feels like it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's really just a frustrating experience for everybody I talk to. And people feel like there are all these decisions that were made by the time this happened that we don't get any say in, we don't get any chance to talk about. And then things end. One of the decisions is that things have to end at this really early point, and we don't get any say to say, why can't we have just a little bit more time? Why can't we just take a little bit longer and get this thing done right? And what we hear is we don't have time for that. It has to ship, and we'll put it in the backlog and we'll fix it later, even though that's one of the biggest product management lies that ever happened. And so this is the problem that we have. This is the problem of being reactive. And the only way that we're going to get past this is to become more strategic. Now, part of the problem that we have is that this work is very tactical. A lot of UX is tactical, right? There are activities that we know to do, right? We know to do stakeholder interviews. We know to do what else? We know to do usability tests. And sometimes we even get to do them. We know to draw wireframes. We know to create Figma files. And we think in terms of these tactical activities. None of these are strategic, right? What we need is strategy. And strategy, the way to think about strategy is a high level plan, right? A high level plan to attain a goal. And we need a goal that helps us understand why we're doing what we're doing. And then we need a high level plan to attain that goal and to dictate what the overall elements are. And going back to the chocolate factory, right? The issue is that we don't have any idea what's happening on this side of the wall or what's happening on this side of the wall. We don't know what the things are happening. We're just in this little loop, in this little room that where everything else about the way the business works is completely obscured. And that's not working. That is this world of tactical reactionary stuff. And one way to think about this is that this is the world of outputs. When we're in the world of outputs, outputs are about delivery, right? We have to deliver something. And so we deliver our interview results, we deliver our tests, we deliver our wireframes, we deliver our Figma files. The product team as a whole delivers a working version of a product, and that's all great. And we need to do that. We need to deliver things. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But the world doesn't end upon delivery. What we need to think about are outcomes. Outcomes are the change in the world that we want to see. When we deliver something, what is it in the world that we want to see different? Why did we deliver something in the first place? That's the key. So we need to focus on outcomes. And the problem with the I Love Lucy model is that the outcomes happen here and we don't get to see them. In fact, we don't even know if those were the intended outcomes because the intention is set here. And by the time it gets to us, any sort of notion of improvement in the world for users has been stripped away, and at best it's we need to increase retention, or we need to increase signups, or there's some other thing that has been removed that has been sort of homogenized to be put into this framing of the business, but we don't really know why people want to sign up or why they'd want to stay with us. So we don't know the things that we need to know in order to do a really good job. So this world of being reactive, the counter to that is to start to think in terms of what are the outcomes that we would want to get. Now we can think of outcomes because we're user experience people. We can think of outcomes in terms of a user's experience, right? So a UX outcome, heavy on the X. That's what we want to do. And a UX outcome basically answers a question. If we do a great job on whatever it is that we're doing, right? It could be, we could be working on adding a new phone number field into a dialog box. We could be working on, making the best product we can over the next 5 years, right? Doesn't matter if it's small or big. If we do a great job on whatever that is, how do we improve someone's life? That's a big ask, right? What we're saying is, if we do a great job on this thing, how do we make somebody's life better? I mean, that's, at the end of the day, that's the key definition of experience, right? We certainly don't want to make someone's life worse. So we want to think in terms of a person's life. And then the interesting thing is, we can ask this question about anything we do, whether it's the phone number field or the 5-year mission. We can say, if we do a great job on this phone number field, how do we improve someone's life? If we don't know why we're working on the phone number field, how can we possibly do a good job? Right? But in the world of being reactive, we almost never know why we're working on the phone number field. We never really understand why that even got on the list. And so this idea of how do we improve someone's life, this is a really fascinating question, right? And we can think of it experientially, right? So we can think of a user's experience, right? We're going to have a user here. I'm going to call the user Edna. That's a real person, Edna, not a persona. We're not gonna bother with personas. They're not helpful. We're gonna go with a real person, Edna. And Edna, in order to use our product, had to do a bunch of things. Maybe our product is a way to book a hotel room. And so these vertical little lines that I just drew here. By the way, thank you for putting up with my writing and drawing. You're quickly discovering that the only thing I can draw is blood, and I apologize for my handwriting. That I chose the a font for tonight, sans neatness, and that's what we're going with. Anyways, Edna's working on this process here. Edna's she's gonna find the hotel site of their choice, and then she's going to look to see if it has rooms on the night she wants, and she's going to figure out if the room is the kind of room she wants, and then she's going to actually say, yes, I want that room, and then she's going to have to start putting in her various information first, her address and her billing information and her billing address, and that'll confirm her reservation, right? So we've got a whole bunch of things here, and we can measure Edna's experience in this process on a scale of extreme frustration to extreme delight. And we can see that this is at first, when she discovers that the hotel is like in the right place and it sounds really like a cool hotel, she's really excited about that. And then when she starts to look at the rooms, they offer her a whole bunch of rooms, but she doesn't understand the difference between them. And then when she looks at the details of the room, it uses all this jargon like amenities that she doesn't even really understand what that means. And then she finally picks a room that she thinks she wants, and that's pretty good. But then when she starts to enter her address, it starts to complain about the details of her address. For instance, it doesn't like the fact that the way she thinks about her phone number is the way includes spaces and dashes, and it hates her for that. And same with her credit card number. It really doesn't like any spaces in the credit card number, even though that's the only way she can make sure she has the right number. And then finally she gets the information in the way she wants, and she confirms, and that's delightful again. And so there are these pockets where Edna is frustrated with this process. You know, she blames herself, she blames the system, she really doesn't like what's happening here. And that's Edna's experience. If we watch somebody else, would we see the same experience? And so we go and we watch somebody else do the same sort of process. And over time, what we realize is a bunch of people are having this experience like this. And we can start to ask the question, okay, if this is a problem, and Edna has this problem, right? If we do a great job on our room booking application, the question becomes, how would we improve Edna's life? So we can answer that question by saying, well, what if we made it delightful for Edna all the way across? What if it was a delightful experience for Edna in that way? So this line here, the red line, is that's the current experience that Edna is having with our design. And this blue line here, this is an aspirational experience. So we have this current experience, we have this aspirational experience. And what we want to understand is, what would it take to get this experience to be more delightful all the way across? That's the question that we have to offer. And this, just having this conversation alone, is huge, because we're no longer thinking reactively. We're now thinking about doing the work that Edna needs. And we're done when we've made things to be actually delightful for Edna. And we don't have to do it all at once. We could make it just a little bit more delightful to start with, and then make this one more delightful, the next time, and then make this one more delightful the next time, and this one more delightful. The way you eat an elephant is one bite at a time. But the basic idea here is that by the time we are all done, and it may take us our 5-year vision, but by the time we are all done, we're going to make this delightful all the way across. And so what we've done is we've created this UX outcome where we can answer this question of what that improvement in Edna's life is going to be. And so we can think of this as a process, but it's not a process like you're used to seeing, right? You may have heard of the double diamond process. The double diamond process was created by the Design Management Institute in the UK, and they refer to it as a double diamond because, well, it has these two diamonds, I guess. But the thing is it's not a double diamond because they divide each of these diamonds into triangles. So it's not a double diamond at all. It's 4 triangles. But the thing about this is that there are 4 stages to our double diamond for some reason. And it's represented as a diamond because in the first and third stage, we're supposed to diverge. We're supposed to come up with a whole lot of ideas. And in the second and fourth phase, we're supposed to converge. And so we're supposed to reduce our thinking down to a single solution so that we can actually make it happen. And the way that the double diamond is supposed to work is in the first triangle, we're supposed to do something called discover, where we find as many different sort of issues and problems that we want to try and understand, or at least solutions to a problem, right? So we've somehow picked a problem that we're going to solve, and we go into this process and we diverge across all the different possible solutions we could have, and then we're gonna reduce those solutions with a stage that people call define, and then so now we've come down to a single solution at this point, but that single solution we now need to implement in some way. We now need to create. So we're going to take that solution and we're going to develop it out. And again, we're going to diverge and come up with a bunch of different ways we could develop the solution. And then we're going to converge again with a single solution that we deliver off to the folks who are going to then code this thing and ship it, I guess. And so by the time we're done here, we'll have known that it was built, whatever it is, it's built right to solve the problem. But the issue is that first, this notion of having four equally sized triangles inside of our two equally sized diamonds is not how it really works. If we look at the amount of time and resources that are spent, almost all of it in most UX teams is spent on this diamond. Virtually none of it is spent in discover and define. That's pretty much nailed down at the time that the project starts. We don't have time to go figure out all the solutions. The solution's already been determined. That was written in the backlog. That's what, when we do the stupid user stories where we pretend, empathy theater by saying, as a user, I would like to log in so I can access my stuff, right? We're already here. We've already decided that the solution to this problem is being able to log in. And we don't know why that solution was chosen. It was just chosen. That's just the way it is. And so one estimate, some folks in New Zealand at PwC estimated that about 80 to 85% of all resources in an organization are spent on development and delivery. And only about 15 to 20% are spent on discovery and definition. And this is a problem for us, because if we don't do the discovery, if we get the definition wrong, we're not building the right thing. We may be building it right, but we're not building the right thing. And that is a key piece of the problem, right? What we need to do is think of this. Jen Cardello, who heads up user research at Fidelity, says that there are three questions here. Do we have the right problem? Do we have the right solution? And have we built it right? But the problem is that we focus almost all our energy on the build it right thing without knowing if we have the right problem or the right solution. If we have the wrong solution, it doesn't matter if we built it right. If we have the wrong problem, it doesn't matter if we built it right. So this is the result of having a reactive process where we reach into the bag of backlog items or the Kanban board or the roadmap or whatever it is, and we pull something out and we just start working on it without really understanding what we're trying to do. And the way we get past this is we start to work proactively, right? In a proactive environment, things are different. We still have our project. Our project still has that time when we start. It still has a time when we ship. But the proactive process can think beyond the walls of here. We can finally see something over here, and here, I'll give it eyelashes. There we go. And we can see what's happening over here. And what we can see is that that there's something that happens after this. And what happens after this is when we deliver. This is the output. But this is when we've achieved the outcome. And there's some time in here. There's something that's going to happen because the outcome isn't necessarily achieved the exact moment we ship. It's going to take the user a while. But there's more to this, which is the difference between a reactive approach to UX and a proactive approach to UX is that a reactive approach to UX is very much focused on this idea of design, right? It's very much focused on being very design centric. And it's very much about delivering a design. A proactive approach to UX is a different mindset. In a proactive approach to UX, what we realize is that there are decisions that are happening. All the way through this project, there are a bunch of decision points. And what we're really doing is we're trying to understand how we can inform decisions. This is that's what I want to say, decisions. This is the downside of me doing this. No, I can spell. It is late. I want to point that out. Okay, there we go. That's supposed to be the word decisions. Pretend that's the word decisions. So what we're trying to do is inform decisions. We have all these decision points. But here's the thing. The decision points don't start during the project. There's a bunch of decisions that happen before the project, right? There's a decision to put it on the roadmap. There's another decision to take it off the roadmap and start to work on it. There's another decision to even put it into consideration for potentially someday going onto the roadmap. There's a decision about deadlines. There's a decision about staffing. How many people are we going to have on the project? And all of these decisions are UX decisions. They don't look like UX decisions at the beginning. But if you define a UX decision as anything that affects the user's experience, that makes them all UX decisions, because how many people we have on the project definitely affects the whether we will achieve the outcome or not. How many deadlines or what the deadlines are will determine whether we achieve the outcome or not. The user's experience, our ability to improve someone's life, is determined by every single one of these decisions. Yet usually the people who make these decisions are so insulated from the user's experience. They know nothing about what it was like to be Edna. They don't know anything about Edna and the struggles that she has. And so therefore, they are the least informed people to make what turn out to be probably the most important UX decisions. And that's the issue. If we want to become proactive, we need to be informing every single one of these decisions beforehand. That's the proactive part of this. In essence, we get to say how fast the conveyor belt's going to move and how much chocolate is on it. And so this idea is that we're going to really start to move in this direction. Now, to get there, we have to change the way we think about our work. We have to stop being reactive. We have to stop being tactical. We have to now be more strategic. And that process of being more strategic means that we no longer think in terms of our work as being interviews and Figma files and usability tests. It becomes something quite different. Here's what it becomes. We have to first make sure that we have a goal. Our goal is our UX outcome. Remember, a strategy is a high-level plan that gets us to a goal. So we need to put a plan together on how we're going to achieve the UX outcome. And so the UX outcome is the improvement, right? If we do a good job, how do we improve somebody's life? So that's the UX outcome. And the UX outcome, the way you get a UX outcome is you start with the current experience, right? Edna's experience. We spend time studying all of our users, trying to find out what's happening, right? What is the experience that Edna is having? What is the experience that everybody else is having on our scale of extreme delight to extreme frustration? And we look and we see what the patterns are in the user's experience. And then we take those patterns and we ask the question, if we did a great job on this experience, how would we improve somebody's life? So that's where we're getting to. That's what it is. So now we've done our work. We have a good understanding of what the experience is. We have a good understanding of what the outcome could be because we can see the improvement. And from there, we can start to do some work, right? And the work that we start to do is we say, okay, what's preventing Edna from getting this outcome right now without our help? And that question is answered by the idea that we're going to make a list of all the obstacles to the outcome from the current experience. And this is a list of the problems we need to solve. So we're going to take the current experience and use the current experience to create a list of problems that we need to solve. And then we start chipping away at those problems. And we come up with the things we're going to deliver into the world, our solutions, right? This is our output. We're going to create solutions that solve the problems. On so many teams, they start with the solutions and they don't spend any time on the problems. And so the issue there is that the solutions just come out of nowhere. And of course, they're not actually solving any real problems. And this is particularly an issue. So, we have the problems, we have the solutions, and hopefully we deliver these solutions into the world and we see the outcomes occur, right? We see the improvement that we're going to get. And that's great. But sometimes we're going to ship something in the world, we're not going to see the improvement, but that's okay, because we're actually going to then learn more about the problem. What UX people often refer to as iterating is basically just focusing on this loop, going back and forth between the problem and the solution, the problem and the solution, right? So that we're used to this. This isn't new. We're already doing this, except we're spending time focusing on the outcome as the way we know we've succeeded, not just on delivery. Did we put something out? Did we build it right? Right? That's an output. What we want to know is it has solved the right problem, and the problems come from our understanding of the user's experience. And so what we're really doing here is we're creating this focus on, first, the problems we have to solve, because if we don't know what the problems are, there's no way we're not going to come up with the right solution. There's an old saying, which is great designers don't fall in love with their solution. Great designers fall in love with the problem. That's what we want to focus on. How do we fall in love with the problem? But the other piece of this is that we need to also have a solid understanding of the current experience. Not just the researchers on the team, everybody who is making those decisions has to understand the current experience and the problems to solve. Because how can you adequately figure out if something should be on the roadmap, what the deadline should be, what the staffing should be, if you have no understanding of the current experience and the problems to solve? So this is what we're trying to do. We need a shared understanding. And to get that shared understanding, the primary goal of UX leaders who want to work proactively is very straightforward. It's to make the organization the world's most foremost experts in the user's current experience and the challenges they face. Right? If you are working in a product and nobody around you understands the current experience or the problems that those users face, how can you possibly deliver something that solves those problems? So this is our charter. This is our goal. This is the thing that makes us proactive. We put together a UX strategy, and the UX strategy is about building expertise in who our users are and what challenges they face. Because I've never met a team who, if they had a solid understanding of the problems, they couldn't come up with a million solutions right away. And that's the key. We're going to get to being proactive by shifting our focus so that we're no longer 85% on solutions. We're instead 85% on understanding the problem and only 15% on the solutions, because the solutions get so much easier when we have a solid understanding of the problem. Most of the work that designers do today is compensating for the fact that they don't have good research. When we don't have good research, when we don't understand our users and what they need, the absence of research has a technical name. It's called guessing. And there's no way we're going to guess our way to solid improvements in people's lives. That's what I wanted to talk to you about today. So, given all that, Chris, do we have some questions?
Oh, we sure do. I am going to give everybody the ability to unmute yourselves and start your video if you'd like to. And we've our first question, if I scroll up in the chat, comes from Lori Moses, and it says, "Where does the activity of identifying problems and choosing what to work on, and then identifying solutions happen? Where might it best happen?"
Lori, that's a great question. You want to say more about that?
Hi. I just feel like you kind of talked about this as after I asked my question.
That's fine.
Ideally, the team that's working on that would include a bunch of the user experience designers, right? But it doesn't always. And as some other people have mentioned, then it becomes a like corporate structure problem, and so I'm not sure. I mean, I love what you say, and it makes so much sense. But I'm not sure other people who are making these decisions realize how much sense it makes.
Well, it makes sense because we explained it well. So if we want them to understand it, we just have to explain it well to them. That's an overly simplified way of dealing with the problem.
Very
Um,
optimistic.
the uh, 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 first, let there's a bunch of ways I could tackle this, right? We could talk about the fact that the distinction between designers and researchers is actually a non-existent distinction, right? It's a social construct that we created. It's mostly supported by HR assigned job titles that the only reason we need job titles in business is so that the human resources group understands which salary band to put people in so they know how much they're going to pay women less than men. And that's it. That's the only real purpose for job titles.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So it's just a set of skills. And anybody can learn research skills because so far I've never met anybody who couldn't learn research skills, and anybody can learn design skills. I have yet to meet anyone who can't learn design skills, and I created a school for designers. So our job is to take people who know nothing about design and make them into good designers. And that's, so far I haven't found anybody I can't do that with if they're willing. So that's not the issue. The real issue here is connecting up the fact that those decisions are UX decisions. And the experience that I've had at sort of connecting this idea that those decisions are UX decisions comes from the fact that we can look at outcomes. Now, I mentioned that an outcome is a change in the world. And some of the changes are the changes we hope, right? The improvement to people's lives. But some of the changes are going to be things that we didn't hope for. In fact, we're not happy about at all. They're going to be negative changes, because change can be positive or negative. The difference between an output and an outcome is that an output has no sense of quality to it, right? We don't have any understanding of quality, but the output, the outcome, that builds quality in. That says we want things to go up, not down. However, one thing to realize is that all products, when we deliver them, have a UX. You can't avoid it. Even if no UX people were harmed in the process of this project, we still deliver something that has a UX. If there were no UX people involved at all in the project, we still deliver something that has a user experience, because everything has a user experience. It's just that the odds of it having a great user experience, if nobody thought about the user experience and the process of it, are very slim. That means that it has a poor user experience. And if it has a poor user experience, then the outcomes we're going to get are not the outcomes we hope for. They're going to be other outcomes. And almost always, the other outcomes end up costing the business. We call them the costs of frustration. There are things like support calls and training and lost sales and developers who spend years of their life working on something that nobody ends up using. And all of these costs are outcomes. And we can measure these outcomes because we can measure any change we can see in the world. And because we can measure any change we can see in the world, we can go back and say, hey, the decisions you made got these outcomes, and they weren't the outcomes we wanted. And we can ask the question, how might we get different outcomes next time? And if the team is willing, right, and there is definitely an attitudinal element to this. If people don't care, then it doesn't matter. But if the people you work for don't care, it might, it's a privileged notion, but you might be in the wrong place. But if they do care, even if all they care about are the business things, right? They care about retention. They care about signups. That's great, because if we focus on a UX outcome, if we do a great job on increasing retention, how will that improve the user's life? So in that instance, we would look and say, people are only going to want to stay with us if they like what we have to offer. So let's focus on what they have to offer. Let's make it so awesome that they don't want to leave. And we focus on a better experience. And that's how we get there. Does that make sense, Lori?
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate how you've explained that.
That's my job. I'm happy I was able to explain it. Chris, who should we talk to next? Thank you for that lovely question, Lori.
Yeah, it's in a similar vein, but with like development-led companies, we've got a question from Alana here, and I apologize if I pronounce anyone's name wrong. I'm very sorry about that. Does the focus on an MVP fail fast contribute to paying less attention to the discovery diamond?
Oh, well, fail fast is problematic. Alana, you want to talk about this?
Hi, is my sound working?
Yes, it is.
Great. Yeah, I think it is something that I've experienced in working environments, that people regard the idea of fail fast as absolutely critical, that you make something, you watch it fail, and then you start again from the beginning. Whereas if you did your research in the first place, you wouldn't have made so many failed things. So I know that there's value to fail fast in the sense that it frees people up to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes. But I do wonder whether maybe that might be part of the culture away from research and towards just making.
Yeah, I am not a fan of fail fast. I have thought that this was a silly idea from the very beginning. Fail fast doesn't take into account any sort of notion of the harm of failure. And by the way, nobody likes to fail, right? This fail fast thing, it's like, oh, we just have to, it's our mantra here, fail fast. And I always imagine this meeting with a CEO where the CEO calls in the senior team and to explain some big failure that just happened. And the team's answer is, well, boss, our mantra here is to fail fast. And so we really wanted to fail, and we decided to make it big so you'd notice that we were failing, right? And nobody wants to be called into the CEO's office and asked, why did you fail, right? What we want to be called into the office to talk about is, what did we learn, right? It's not about failing fast, it's about learning fast. And the fact is that you can learn a ton without failing. In fact, I contend that you will learn much better if you remove the risk of failure. And and here's the thing, right? I know a ton of people who, I bet you do too, who seem to fail quite often in life and don't seem to ever learn anything from it. Just because we fail, it doesn't mean we learn. However, what we want to do is make sure that every time anything happens, whether we fail or we succeed, we are capturing all the lessons from that. And in fact, one of the problems of fail fast is that it does not allow us to talk about risk mitigation. Because risk mitigation is all about, how can we try things in a safe environment that won't do harm on the outside. And this idea of mitigating risk, that's something we should be promoting. But if we have a fail fast mentality, then failing fast means taking away all of the guardrails for mitigation. And it's almost as if the way we were going to build software, imagine if the way we were going to build software is like the way we build software is the way we build bridges. So the whole idea of failed fast is you put together a bridge as quickly as possible without any regard to any notion of engineering and physics. And then you send a car across it, and it will inevitably plunge to the bottom of the ocean, of the gorge. And you then say, that didn't work. Maybe we should try something different next time. We make some changes, we send another car across, we watch it plunge to its depth, and then we say, that didn't work either. This is a horrible way to build things, right? This is not how we build bridges. This is not how we want to build skyscrapers. It's not how we want to build airplanes. And it's not how we should build any of our applications or our products or services, right? We should be making sure we don't fail fast. What we want to do is learn fast. And we can learn fast by putting together a high quality research environment and really getting ahead of the game, right? Learning about things. If we set out our goal to become the world's experts in who our users are and what they need, then when a question comes up, we don't have to guess. We already know the answer. And we can start to work well in that regard. So I'm not a big fan of the fail fast thing.
Thank you very much. Great answer.
You're welcome.
All right, next
Chris,
question.
who should we talk to next?
Winnie. She's wondering why we don't have the time latitude to explore the right thing to build. How do we expose the problem to product teams that are in charge of roadmaps and of committing the team to unrealistic deadlines?
That's a good question. Winnie, can you say more about that?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Sure. It's basically, it kind of got answered through presenting the portion about like UX decisions are the decisions that we make about the roadmap, about the stuff that we decide prior. And something that I've noticed in multiple startups is that there's this assumption that we don't have a say in how those things are done. And so I was wondering through my question, what could we say or expect to about those people to get where we are, like where we want to be in terms of outcomes?
Right. So one place to start is with that cost of frustration, right? One place to start is to say, look, we've been shipping stuff here for a while now. And every time we ship stuff, support calls go up, training costs go up, where we spend time on things that nobody uses. We're losing sales because we haven't solved the real problem that users have. So these things start to add up. And we can, oftentimes, what I've found is that if you look hard enough, you can actually start to put some sort of dollar amount on this. So let me give you an example. Here's an example of this. I have a client who makes a software as a service product. It's a marketing product, marketing public relations. And they have, let's see, last I heard they had about 1,200 developers. And they have 24 UX people, right? So right there, that's not a particularly impressive ratio, but it gets even more interesting because what they also have is in their sales group, they have 300 people who have the title of customer success. They're the customer success team. And the customer success team, they have a simple job. Their job is to make sure that the product can be installed for each high value customer. So they do installation and high value support for their high value customers. There's also a support team. There's another 200 support people who handle all the other customers who are supposed to basically be self-service. And so the high value customers, they get the customer success people associated with them. And they've added 300 of these people. Now, the reason that they have any of these people is because the product can't easily be installed on its own. And because the product can't easily be installed on its own, they have these trained specialists whose job it is to go and install the product and answer questions, make sure the customer gets the full value of this product. Because by itself, it cannot happen without the help of these customer success people. So let's do some back of the envelope math. Let's say that when you add in salary, benefits, equipment, costs of travel, they spend about $200,000 per year on each one of these customer success people. We do a little bit of math on that, and 200,000 times 300 is, what does that work out to be? $600 million a year. No, I got that wrong. I put an extra zero. It's $60 million a year. Pretend that says 60 million. So it's $60 million a year to be able to install the product. That's what it costs to install the product every year, not including all the questions they get by all the self-service customers who install their product wrong. So they're spending $60 million plus on installation. Now, tell me that if we had $60 million to fix installation, hell, let's take 2 years worth of this money, $120 million to fix installation, that we couldn't do a bang up job of making things much more installable. So all those people who are up at the top of the project making those decisions, where'd I put that chart? Here it is, right? All the people who are making this, you go and you tell them that this is a $60 million a year thing that they're talking about, you're going to get their attention. And I guarantee you that there's somebody, I'm going to guess it's the head of customer success, whose job it is to figure out how to make customer success more efficient. Because, by the way, they charge for customer success, or at least they pretend they do. Turns out they don't actually charge, because what happens is the salespeople keep throwing this customer success, the price of a customer success contract, into the deals for free to land the high value customers. So this is money that they're spending. They could probably still sell customer success even if installation was brain dead simple. Because nobody who's spending that kind of money on that kind of software really cares about this issue. It's only after the fact. So if we can make it so simple that it only took a customer success person 5 minutes to get a high value client up and running, then what would they do with the rest of their time? Oh my gosh, they'd save so much money. Oh, and by the way, this organization, they're asking for 20% increase on their customer success. They want to hire another 60 people, which is another $12 million. So next year, it's going to cost $72 million to install the product. Does that make sense, Winnie?
It absolutely does. I think looking at it in general, I always thought about numbers, but in terms of like how much time it takes to complete a task and stuff, and I've never like thought of the broader implications of people that are employed to do what the product was supposed to be doing in the first place. And I think it's a very like solid argument. Thank you for
that's the question. That's the question that we should be asking first every time. How much is poor user experience costing our organization today? Because we can't sit. I mean, everybody talks about what's the ROI of design. I just gave you the ROI of design. Right? The ROI of design is to stop spending $72 million next year on installation. Right? So we can solve these problems easily if we start paying attention to what's happening in the rest of our organization. Every time we ship something with a poor user experience, it costs us. We either lose a sale, or we spend it on support, or we spend it on training, or we lose productivity, or we waste it on developers when they have to redo things, or the things they do don't get used, or we put product managers into crisis management when that big customer calls up and says it doesn't work the way we want. And now that product manager isn't doing what they were supposed to be doing that week. They are dealing with a client, a customer in crisis. And they're not going to get any more revenue from that customer in crisis. So this is the issue.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Winnie.
All right. I see one more question in the thread regarding the presentation. And then there's somebody that's asking for an opinion of yours on an outside project, if you've got the time, Jared.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Here, let me give you some things to look at, right? So you can find me at JM Spool on Twitter. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can get me at jspool@uie.com is my email address. And you can join our community. We have a community called Leaders of Awesomeness. It's at leaders.centercenter.com. Or you can just Google leadersofawesomeness.com. There we go. There's no E in .com. And so that's how you can get a hold of me, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you ask. But what's the last question we have, Chris?
All right. What do we do with very complex applications where the field of it is hard to understand overall? The discovery phase can take several months. Is that a time we should take, and how do we sell that to our clients and stakeholders? That's from Alicia.
Alicia, are you still here?
Yep, I'm here. Hello.
Okay, you want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I did have several projects that were very complex in understanding, like starting from the field on its own, like lawyers, immigration attorneys. I had such a project. And it also was complex in terms of application they already have, like understanding it on its own was pretty hard. And then gathering all of that and understanding better, like user experience, users and stuff like that on top of that, right? So all of that taking incredible amount of time, really, because even for like to add people to our project, we needed several months to explain everything to them. And we could see, like, even with the understanding of a client that they have that issue that you just outlined, that they spend a lot on support, on explaining people how to use this application, on a bunch of people who resolve this issue, they still were frustrated because so much time is spent basically without any deliverables, right? So maybe you have some suggestion on how to deal with like very complex projects that can take a long time to figure out that problems and issues.
Well, there's no simple answer. In order to deal with complex problems, you have to learn them. I mean, any organization that's not willing to invest in learning how to solve the problems they are trying to solve is going to fail at solving the problems. There's no trick to this. It's not like you can take some sort of pill or drink some magic potion and for 48 hours become an expert in a product. You're going to have to make the investment. And if you're not making the investment because it costs too much, then you're just going to go out of business. I mean, there is really it's not a sustainable thing, right? It's this idea of this idea that you would hire a bunch of people who know nothing about rocket science to build a rocket, or you'd open up a restaurant with people who don't know anything about running a restaurant. There's a good chance that those things are not going to succeed, right? So why would that work in any other environment? Would you go to a hospital that doesn't know anything about medicine? I don't have an answer for you. Yeah. So you need some sort of expertise. Does that mean that you need to be the one with the expertise? No, but you need to have people who can help you and show you and can bring you up to speed. And this is a challenge. I don't have an easy solution for this. If you want to do something well, you have to learn how to do it. You have to learn what it is. And a complex product, and I deal with companies and organizations that make really complex products. I mean, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory is a group I work with on a regular basis. They literally are rocket scientists. And they are some of the smartest people I know. And they make sure they bring in people who either know stuff or can learn stuff really quick. And most of the stuff that they do, nobody knows. They're building a robot called the Europa Clipper, whose job it is to fly to the moon of Saturn, Europa, which no one's ever done before. Go into orbit around Europa. No one's ever done that before. Send probes down to the surface of Europa. No one's ever done that before. Collect data from Europa, no one's done that before, and send it back to Earth. This, they have the smartest people in the planet, and they still don't know how to do that stuff. So turns out this project's been taking 30 years to do. And they just do that. The reality is that there's no shortcut to this. I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for you in how you do this other than to learn the domain. And if it takes months or it takes years, that's the price you have to pay. I don't see an answer around that. I hope that was okay, Alicia.
Yeah, I totally understand you, because I totally agree with you on that. You know, it's just usually you like prepare to sell, like, oh, we will spend like a month on researching or something like that. But then you have to tell them like, oh, we will spend 6 months or something, and you don't know what's gonna happen, or 3 months or however. And yeah. But so the selling point is much like you'll need to do a lot more selling for that.
Are you in an agency? Is that where you're at?
Yeah, I was in an agencies.
Yeah. So you're right. You what you can do in an agency is pick a domain, right? So I have a client that's an agency, and they've decided to become the world's foremost experts in commercial leasing management, a very niche area, right? So if you are a business and you want to buy a new warehouse or factory or office space, you basically go and you find a commercial lessor. And so there's a bunch of companies that own buildings that they then lease out to factories and warehouse businesses and whatnot. And managing all of these properties, turns out that's a really hard job. You have to make sure they're up to code, and that where they are in construction projects, and what work needs to be done, and are you getting enough rent, and are you paying all the taxes? And so what these folks have been doing, this agency, is they got one company who hired them to do this, and that company taught them a bit about the business and what they needed. And then they went to another company and said, we know how to do this stuff. And they're like, oh, finally, somebody who knows how to do this. Yes, let us hire you. And they let that company train them some more. And then they went and did another company in that space. And now they are becoming the world's foremost experts in the support systems needed to do commercial leasing. And that's turning out to be a huge benefit. Now, it doesn't let them pick up just any client. It only lets them pick up companies in the commercial leasing space. But I got to tell you, turns out there are a lot of them. And it turns out they are very hungry for people who actually understand commercial leasing, because they've been burned by one agency after another, having software built that knows nothing about commercial leasing and doesn't fit their business. So if you're in an agency, pick a niche and become an expert in it. That's the only answer I got for you.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. Yeah, that would be cutting off like a bit of time, because you already know the field at least.
Yeah, you're not going into every project knowing zero.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, Chris, I think we should go watch the season finale of this January 6 hearings.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Thank you so
crime
much for your
drama on
time,
television,
Jared.
I'm telling
Yeah. If anybody does want to hang out here too for a minute, I will keep the meeting open if anybody wants to hang out and network and chat. But I just wanted to say thank you again, Jared, so much for your time. We really appreciate the talk this evening. I know I've learned a ton, and really look forward to seeing you again at some point in the future.
That sounds awesome.
All right.
Take care. Thank you, everybody, for encouraging my behavior.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.